Well, I want to go into an interesting story about Bob Beck, the one that developed the Beck zapper. I think it's kind of like, sometimes it's touted to be a cure-all, but I'd like to emphasize, do downplay anything that's like an alternative medicine, because first off, if you overplay it and the medical establishment sees that the claims aren't true, they immediately, even the honest ones, dismiss it as a hoax. So, be humble with some of the achievements of some of these great people that have done things in alternative medicine, or, whatever you want to call it, alternative healing or whatever the hell it is. But anyway, I was looking up something on Georges Lakhovsky's multi-wave oscillator, and I came across Bob Beck's name, which is interesting. You see, actually I want to backtrack a little bit. Georges Lakhovsky was a great Russian engineer and scientist who discovered basically the secret to life, if you want to call it that way. He was the one that found the two-strand DNA and all that type of stuff. He made a multi-wave oscillator. Now, I'm going to get into some of these things more and more, because this channel is going to still be about silver, but I'm going to probably get more into the health aspects on things. But Georges Lakhovsky's machine actually had a 98% success rate with terminal cancer and a lot of things that were like hopeless. Because what it did is it restored the vibrations of the actual cells in the body, where the cells themselves were counteracting the bad vibrations from like parasites and cancers. It's basically like there's a tug of war going on, In a healthy body, the vibrational and frequency waves that are going naturally in the cells will overcome all disease, no problem. But in an unhealthy body, it needs some assistance. So it's almost like if you took a tuning fork, if you said this is a tuning fork here or something. I'm not making any hand signs with the devil here. If you freaking... say that, I'm trying to make a crude tuning fork, okay? Say this is a tuning fork, and you go bing, and you had another one over here. It's not a devil sign, okay? People out there would watch David Icke too much, or whatever his name is. You go bing on a tuning fork, the other fork's going to start ringing. So in other words, Lakhovsky's oscillation machine puts out a signal that the body is like it's harmony, right? It's frequency. So it causes the cells in the body that aren't ringing right to ring correctly and be healthy. And it gives them an assistance. It gives them a little jump start. Anyway, it works though. It works. Now I'm looking up stuff on him last night, and I come across Bob Beck's name. Bob Beck, Robert C. Beck, who's the PhD, or actually it was a different name back in '51, I think it was when he got it. And it's the same Bob Beck. There's not too many Bob Becks out there that know this kind of stuff, and actually I double-checked it with the age, his mother's age, and all this kind of garbage, because he gave the machine to his mother to help her back in 1963, and she was 72 years old at that time. There's not too many Bob Becks around that know this stuff. It's not like Bob Beck who rebuilt small block Chevys. There might be a lot of those around, but there's not too many that know about all this high-end engineering stuff. So it's the same one, okay? But basically, back in 1963, it looks like Bob Beck understood this stuff, the multi-wave oscillator, which makes me wonder, why did he make it like he didn't understand anything about what Royal Rife did or anything else more complex about healing with frequencies? Yet, he puts out this nice simple zapper which works, which helps, but it's definitely not anywhere near as strong as his multi-wave oscillator. Why did he not put this out to the world? Because, it's interesting, it's not patented anymore. The patent expired in 1951, okay? 20-year patent. So Georges Lakhovsky had the patent for 20 years. It expired in 1951. Anybody could build this. No big deal, right? I'm a little suspicious about something here, so you could think maybe it's too much or not, but I am a little bit suspicious about it, because supposedly Bob Beck was in a wheelchair dying of cancer, and he got like totally cured from a zapper. and some people are saying he was wearing it 24 hours a day. Then I also look at his hair. His hair, he was bald, I mean, way before he was sick, you know, years before. He was like all bald up here, and then most of his hair came back. And I'm thinking, you know, he supposedly used a magnetic pulsar on it, the stimulation side, to bring his hair back. But did you ever hear of anybody bringing their hair back with a magnetic pulsar to that extent? I haven't. But you know what's interesting about Lakhovsky's multi-wave oscillator? There was pictures back in the 30s where people actually got a more youthful appearance, like gray hair turned darker again, and wrinkles disappeared, and before and after pictures. I'm kind of wondering, man, because you know what? Bob Beck was an expert on this shit decades before he went out onto Ventura College or Granada to make those speeches about his simple zapper. He was an expert on stuff much more complex than that has far greater healing potential. So, if you want to read a little bit of a conspiracy in this, because he did do something for us, but I'm kind of wondering about something too, if you get my drift. Now, Bob Beck, basically in 1963, they found one of, it was in the early 60s, Bob Beck found one of Lakhovsky's machines. And nobody knew how to put it together, but you know what? He found some instructions and basically how it worked. Took him a few hours. He got it working, no problem. Because this Bob Beck, this guy was a genius, man. They're a definite genius. You know, he had an IQ test from one of the IQ tests I read about. He had, it was 180. This guy's not stupid. So it makes me wonder, why is he coming out with his zapper? It's almost like, here, we're throwing you something here so you don't look at something else. You know, that's what I'm getting at, okay? Maybe I'm too conspiratorial, but I don't think so. I don't think so. But basically, he found out, you know, it worked. It really did work. You know what I mean? It worked. It worked, and it did what it said. So I'm thinking when he had all these problems and he was terminal and he was in a wheelchair, that's what he really used. I'm thinking this. It's my guess. I'm thinking that's what he used. All right? Now, what's interesting, too, at the same time, Lakhovsky came out with this book called The Secret of Life, and these machines and all this type of stuff. The Nazis were invading Poland. You know, it's like everybody's attention went on that. But you know, I'm going to say something else here, because Lakhovsky was killed by a limousine and hit by a limousine in New York City in 1942. Okay? And after that, his miracle machines that were in some of the hospitals that were doing all this great work, healing the hell out of people, they pulled them out and they stopped all the work on it. Now, I'm going to also say this. Is it the powers that be, the Illuminati or whatever, or is it the people themselves? You know what? People spend more time, devote more attention to the bullcrap that comes out of Hollywood. They were doing this back in the 30s and the 40s, and they do it today. As a matter of fact, this video won't get a 10,000th or 100,000th of the attention of some of the shit that's coming out of Hollywood, although it could be way more important to people. And so you know what the problem is? Oh, it ain't the Illuminati, it's not the elite, it's the people themselves. So, I'm just putting this out there, but for informational purposes, though. It looks very legit that Lakhovsky did a lot of work with these rings, you know, to generate frequencies, and they could be set up with the Fibonacci sequence. So basically, you're healing right in accordance with nature's way or God's plan or whatever. But you know, if you ever want to do some simple tests with this, put the healing rings around plants and see how well they work. How well they work. They do work. That's the thing. But anyway, it looks like Bob Beck knew in 1963 in detail how the Lakhovsky machine worked. Like, there was other engineers trying to put it together, and they couldn't really do it, but Bob Beck just found out saw some plans, some instructions. A few hours later, he had that puppy working, and indeed he said it was not a hoax at all. Actually, there was claims of rejuvenation, indeed existence of historical photographs of treated patients whose skin wrinkles and gray hair got younger appearance. That's talking about in the 30s. So, I'm kind of wondering, how the hell did Bob Beck get his hair to grow back? Because, indeed, because I saw his hair years before he even got sick. He was talking, he used to work with the high-end government defense department on, when the Russians were developing frequency waves against populations and stuff like that. He was working with the defense department on operations, different things behind the scenes. And, he was talking about this stuff, and I saw some of the really old clips of him, and he was almost completely bald, and his hair restored. I don't think it was from the magnetic zapper, to tell you the truth. I'm suspecting it was from this thing, and he wasn't talking about this. He was talking about a zapper, blood electrification, and he was talking about a magnetic pulsar. Simple stuff. And this thing actually that Lakhovsky made, probably in today's day and age, would be dirt cheap. You could buy them today for thousands of dollars. There's no medical claims on them, but in today's day and age with technology, it probably cost $150 to make this damn thing, or maybe $250. $249.99. I mean, that's all it would cost in mass production. But you think about how sinister the people really are on the top, because this machine rejuvenates. It doesn't just kill cancer cells. It creates a field that parasites and cancers don't like, but at the same time, it creates fields of energy that life likes. It brings life back. Of course, like I said, with the tuning fork, and I'm not making any Illuminati sign here. So you had a tuning fork, and you go bing, and here's the body, so here's the oscillator going bing, it's making a tuning sound. Here's the body, 2 tuning forks, the other tuning fork starts picking up the resonance from this one, and it brings upon more life. Again, not making an Illuminati sign for you David Icke crazy people out there, because I want to get somebody telling me that, and I'm trying to do a tuning fork here. But anyway, all the stuff that happened in World War II, all the people that got severely injured, all the trauma, all the injuries, all the money that was spent on weapons, all the money that was spent on the highest tech, new tech that could defeat the enemy or do this, an infinitesimal percentage of that dedicated to Lakhovsky's simple multi-wave oscillator would have saved them billions of dollars in medical bills, because they were, in other words, they could have healed a lot of the soldiers 100 times quicker, cut down the cost. But you know what? That's not what the crap's about. And this was not a mistake that this machine disappeared from the hospital, and it was not an accident that Lakhovsky got hit by a limousine. Alright? But you know what? It's also not an accident that people's attention is glued to Hollywood and the bullshit that's coming out of there. It's not. Because you can tell this to somebody, and it's, whether they're male or female, it goes in one ear and out the other ear. If I wanted to actually say to a female, how do I get somebody to buy into this? Oh, just tell them it makes them freaking look like the hottest, most beautiful Hollywood movie star, and they're never going to get old, never have wrinkles in a million years. But you know what? If everybody had it, they wouldn't like it, because it would almost be like I only have to have it and nobody else has to have it because I'm special. But you know what? That's exactly what's going on with the elite. They got to have a racket and nobody else has to have it. A lot of this stuff that Lakhovsky did, he was working with Rife. He was working with Tesla. He wasn't working with Rife per se, but he was working with Tesla. Rife basically was working with Tesla stuff too. Actually, this machine, this multi-wave generator, uses a Tesla coil in it. I don't think it's that complicated to make, to tell you the truth. Because you're talking about the freaking 1930s, man. I mean, for crying out loud. There wasn't nothing that freaking high-tech back then, really, compared to what they got today. I mean, this thing is probably a giant box. Could be probably like, the size of this thing, probably this small, right? Could be this small. That big box Lakhovsky had today, they could probably make it this big, right? You could probably have like a rollout. You could probably have a hologram printed on carbon fiber paper that you just hang up someplace, you know, with the coils in it, without having it, you know, just rolls out, you know, like that. And if coils are printed on it too, you could probably have something like that. Be portable, like you could fold it up in a little thing like this. Run off a freaking 6-volt lantern battery or some shit, right? I mean, that's the reality behind it. You're talking 1930s technology. It could have been so much better. As a matter of fact, if this thing does what I'm thinking it does, people's, like, you know, they say people can only live to be 140, 150 years old because of the replication of this body's cells. The DNA gets damaged each time and all this kind of garbage. Well, the replication in the body's cells, you could be sleeping on these damn things. You can have a solar power panel that freaking generates the power to this damn thing. You could be sleeping on it all night, and you'll never age. As a matter of fact, you go backwards in age. You will just renew. Theoretically. But you know, like I said, it ain't just the elite that are pulling this garbage. It's the people themselves. Definitely. And nothing you can do about that, man. You can lead a horse to water, but you know what? They don't drink. Croak. I don't give a shit. Anyway, but it looks like Bob Beck. I saw something from somebody that I respect, and I'm not going to say who, but you know, it's kind of looking this way. I don't want to say too much against Bob Beck, because I think the guy was alright, man, but I'm beginning to wonder if he was some kind of disinfo agent, you know what I mean? Because he could have easily talked about this in those speeches. And this thing is not that hard to put together if you got the plans, you know? And it's about, to me, it looks like it's about 1,000 times better than that zapper. Because that zapper doesn't cure cancer, man. Maybe it'll help the body renew itself in some ways. Maybe it'll help. But you know, him going around saying it cures like cancer and AIDS and HIV, it don't do all that shit. Now this damn oscillator thing seems like it could pretty freaking much do any damn thing there is. And you know, considering Bob Beck, in 1963, 30 years before, 3 decades before, he's making these speeches in Granada and Ventura College about his little zapper, the black box with a little square wave 555 timer in it that even I could build. No problem. It's not that hard, man. I mean, he's talking about that damn thing. How come he wasn't talking about this? Anyway, I'm talking about it. So, the thing is, you know what? You know, if I had this thing right now working, and I presented it to people, some fuck would kill me, okay? And then all the lemmings would go, oh, it was a conspiracy, there's nothing you can do about it. You know what? Go get yourself some goddamn copper tubing and start making some freaking coils. Because you know what? This damn thing works even without it powered up somewhat. It even has some kind of effect. And I'm going to get into some of those things later on. But it looks like it's suppressed technology, but it's suppressed because of the people themselves. You know, if I tell this to somebody, they'll be like watching TV, watching the game, drinking a beer. If I tell it to a woman, they'll be putting their makeup on. Well, what's it do for me? Does it get rid of my wrinkle here? You know? That's why it don't work. You know, that's what I'm saying. It don't get out there because of the people themselves. Quit concentrating on the Illuminati and all this bullshit conspiracy, because that in itself is a diversion. What you do is, if you got an answer, start freaking going ahead and just making a goddamn thing. That's the way I look at it. So I don't know if I can make something like this, because I don't know what's in that damn box. I can sure make the coils, but I'm going to get into some stuff about the coils. But it looks like it was patent number 1962-565. So 1962-565 that Lakhovsky made, that expired in 1951. So The device was extensively used in hospitals in France, Germany, and Italy, and tested in New York Hospital with fantastic success. And of course, disappeared out of the New York Hospital with fantastic success because Lakhovsky went to New York to verify the results, work with it, make it, improve it, try to get it out there, and all this kind of garbage. And he got hit by a limousine, and he died, and the machine disappeared. And 15 years later, all the ones in Europe disappeared. So, anyway, I don't blame that exactly on the Illuminati. I blame that on the people themselves. Because like I said, I could be telling you the flat out truth on this stuff. Say this thing actually is the elixir of life, or whatever you want to call it. People ain't going to freaking pay attention to this shit. And I don't give a shit if I'm cursing out here or not. Because people are not going to pay attention to it. Hollywood, baby. You brainwashed insects. And, if I'm the only one that's got to have one, fine. I don't give a shit. It's the way I look at it. And it looks like Lakhovsky found something that was fairly simple that worked incredible. Incredible. And Bob Beck knew all about it in 1963. Bob Beck, the same Robert C. Beck. The same Robert C. Beck that died at age 77 when he fell off his roof and in 2002. That invented the zapper. Now, if you want to put the medical community, you know what? Obamacare, if this thing works anywhere near what supposedly it does, Obamacare would be out the window. Flat out. But World War III is probably brewing behind the scenes, because same thing that's going to divert attention from this. Well, we got to go fight the Nazis and the Japanese right now because, and when they started World War II, nobody really knew about the Holocaust or anything. Actually, it didn't even happen then. It happened after, right, at the end of the war. So, insects get led around by the nose. That's what happens, man. And that's why these inventions don't come into the public. Oh, it's not just the elite. It's the people themselves. And there's junk in the Bible about this, but I could see this plain as day, common sense all the way. So, in my opinion, Bob Beck was playing like he didn't know about Rife or what Rife did. But you know what? This multi-wave oscillator is pretty much the same crap that Rife did, except probably even better, okay? Because it regenerates cells, doesn't just zap out diseases and stuff like that. It's harmful to diseases only, and it's good for life. It restores life. Bob Beck, inside of a few hours, way back in 1963, put this damn machine back together that was like he found. And he got it up and running, and he found out it was no hoax at all. That might be what he used, where his hair all just grew back and shit like that. Because I can't see him using a camera strobe, one zap every freaking 5 minutes or some shit. Because actually the stuff he was using for the magnetic pulsar back then was far inferior to the stuff that's put out by Soda Instruments today, or Dr. Clark's magnetic pulsar today. Far inferior. Much slower. Can you imagine somebody getting hair results like that? It's ridiculous. He probably was using this thing. And maybe that's what he was using on his AIDS, HIV patients too. Because some tests he showed where he went to PCR, negative, 0, whatever the hell it is. And his zapper don't do that shit. If you actually look at on all the internet and stuff like that, nobody gets results like that off the zapper. They just get symptoms disappearing. That's all they get. That's all they get. So, it looks like, this multi-wave oscillator reported that 98% cures of terminal cancer, arthritis, and other hopeless conditions were reported by medical doctors using this multi-wave oscillator. By a Russian, and I'll emphasize this, a good Russian, Georges Lakhovsky. I think this guy's name ought to be a household word in the United States. But it's bullshit out of Hollywood that's a household word. Lady Gaga, man. So, like I said, it ain't the elite. Oh, it's part of the problem. The main problem is the people themselves. So it's up to the people to grab the ball and run with it. And they don't do that because they want to be spoon-fed and, you know, get into conspiracies and worry about shit and all this other crap. This should have been common knowledge everywhere. But, you know, the one simple thing I want to start presenting is making these coils. And that should be easy. That should be easy. That's step one. That's step one. And anybody can do that. And you can see, you could try it out on plants and see if the plants work better. Then you start figuring, gee, maybe there's something to this. But we probably have another diversion coming up because what's all going on in the Middle East and Syria, World War III. So maybe you'll be too busy with other things in the financial collapse and you'll ignore this. Do not ignore this. I'm not. I know most will, though. I know most will. I'm not.